Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to turn it into a reusable app. What I could do, one way of doing that would be just to take the pizza app code here and just replace those three. If I wanted to say, for example, turn it into a coffee app, I could just replace those 3 lines of code with coffee. That's a really simple way of doing it. Would work quite nicely, but the trouble is then I'd have 2 versions of the same code, essentially the same. That then I've got to keep one. If I find a bug in one, I've got to fix the bug in the other. It's not ideal. A better way of doing it is to abstract the bit of code that I need into a separate class. So what I've done in this version is create a reusable GUI class. I'm not going to go into too many details. It takes a little bit more work, but essentially what I had to do is take all the code out, paste it into the GUI class with them, which I've called product GUI. So here's the product GUI class. So all that code you can see, I've just scrolled through really quickly, but you can see all that code is quite similar to the stuff we've seen before, but now it's in its own class. Okay. Pasted it in. I replaced all the references to functions with references to methods. Okay, so they're still functions, but then they're methods that are of the GUI class. So add to basket then becomes self.add to basket, so that it knows to refer to one of its own methods. And identify all the variables that need to be shared between the different methods, like the basket needs to be known about initially when it's created. It needs to be known about by the empty basket button function that deals with the empty basket button, the function that deals with add to basket button. So it needs to be known about in several places. So that needs to be changed to self.basket. Same for the what's chosen, same for the text output, and so on. So I need to go through and do those things. PyCharm will help you with some of that, because as you start to create this class, it will identify things that it doesn't recognize, and then they probably just need the word self dot appending to the front. So here's the code that I've ended up with. It looks, excuse me, it looks very similar to the code we've had before, but quite often you'll see there's a self at the beginning. That just means that this object, this GUI object, can get part of its information from itself, like the basket. Now, in order to create a coffee app, all I need to do is something like this. So that's my pizza app. My entire pizza app code is just has that information about the pizzas, and then product GUI, pg.gui, and it passes that information in. Okay. So let me show you that. There's the pizza app. Only 5 lines of actual working code. And when I run that, I get my pizza app. And the coffee app, because I've done this abstraction, just needs the 3 lines changing. And now I've got a coffee app. There's my coffee app. So you can see it's exactly the same, except that now the information is about coffee. And when I run that, Control-Shift-F10, then I've got my two. Those are my 2 GUIs. They're created from the same class. You can see the similarity, but obviously the list can be longer or shorter, just depending on what information I pass in, and all the prices and stuff can be changed. And so just by changing those 3 lines of code from pizzas to coffees, I can create these 2 completely, as far as the user is concerned, they look quite completely different information. But actually, there's only 3 lines of code that are different between the 2 of those things. The rest is all the GUI has the abstraction of the of the functionality that this app needs. So that's hopefully that's demonstrated the really powerful idea of abstraction. By abstracting all the features that we need to get rid of, then I could create another one that would sell, I don't know, cupcakes or anything else that you buy with extras. I can just create another one just by changing those 3 lines of code. Okay, and there's the picture of the coffees app. So what have we seen today? We've seen the idea of polymorphism. Both of these things we've seen, polymorphism and abstraction, are quite key ideas within object-oriented programming. We've seen polymorphism, we've seen why we need it, and we've defined what it is, and then we saw an example where so polymorphism, multiple inheritance, we've seen an example where we put that into place for our our home hub and made the code much simpler. And then abstraction is taking the key features out and putting them into one place so that they can be reused. We've seen why we need to do that and how we define it. And then an example where we've taken our pizza app and turned it into a coffee app. And now we can turn it into lots of other different apps just by changing a few lines of code. Essentially, we just have to change the data and the rest of the code will stay the same. Okay, I hope you found that useful and interesting. These are, this whole course has just been a kind of introduction to object-oriented programming. Obviously, you can take it much further, but what I've tried to cover here is the key features in particular. In the last couple of weeks, the ideas of inheritance, of polymorphism and abstraction, which can make your code much more robust, much simpler, much more easy to maintain, and are key ideas that are used everywhere in the software industry. Okay, I hope you found that interesting, and thanks for listening.